Dr. Kim, how should we talk to our kids about coronavirus? What should we share? What should we not share?
I think age appropriate is, I think, real important. I mean, you hopefully know your kids better than anyone does. You know if they have fears and anxieties. I've talked to a couple of parents this week who have young kids that have struggled with some anxiety things, and so we talked about not exposing them to very much through this, and not talking about it. Let them, the kids, let them know about it, but to talk to a kid a lot about. I would protect the younger kids pretty much, just like you don't let them watch TV during, you don't let them watch bad stuff on TV. I mean, don't let them watch things because they can't process a lot of that stuff. And so I think letting them know, yes, that's why we're staying home. Mom and dad are here, making sure they have or security, feel that security. And then it gives you a real opportunity to teach them about God and God's faithfulness. And we know God's going to help us through this and all those kind of things. And then depending on what you're facing with a family, if you have a family member that's ill, then you have to talk about that. If you have a family member that dies, family members die all the time. But this is just a little different. And so being able to talk to them about that, just answering their questions, but keeping your answers at their level. Older kids, they're going to, get teenagers or older teenagers. They're going to probably relate pretty much to you. And I think in those, it's just having the conversations. Hey, what do you think about this? And how do you feel about this? Is there anything that you're anxious about with this? And are you worried about your friends? Maybe one of the friends' parents got the virus or something, and they know, or maybe grandparents. I know that's happened a lot where grandparents have gotten it. And so just, again, I think it's an opportunity to get some dialogue going, just to get them to talk. And I know some teenagers don't talk real easily. I would just be present with them enough sometimes so they feel, I mean, if you just run in the room and say, hey, is there anything you talk about? And they're going to say no, and you want out, hang with them a little bit, hey, let's watch this video together, or let's watch, let's do this together. Let's play a game together, do something where you might get a little longer time, and they might, and maybe sharing some of, I was kind of in jail for yesterday, and I just took some time to pray. And this is a verse that I found that really is helpful, and just sharing some things like that. And hopefully that's going to help in some ways. But again, I think it's, your kid, what's appropriate for them, and just being intentional about the time with them.
Yeah, that's really good. I agree. I think you gotta, trust yourself in this. You know your kid best, and so pray about it and lead with what you feel is best. I really want to encourage and empower parents to do that. That you know your kid, you've got this, you can do this. God
Right.
gave you this child and knew that you could shepherd it, and so
Yeah.
He believed in you. You can believe in yourself when it comes to this. And then I agree with what you're saying too about like I think a lot of this depends on how we're presenting it to them. So, like, your kids will pick up on your feelings around the virus. How
Absolutely.
are you talking about it? And, like, what is your presence like when they're receiving information and when you're receiving information about the virus? And so, yeah. So, and I think this is so complicated because I think every family is going to be a little bit different and every kid's going to be a little bit different. And so, figuring this out for your family, I think you just cover it in prayer and you trust the Holy Spirit's guiding. I think, for me, I err on the side of communicating most things in an age appropriate way, obviously, but I share most things. But I also don't have an anxious kid like Finley is 5 and she's just not very anxious. So, the
Right.
kind of things that I've told her, yes, there's a virus. That's why our normal life is interrupted. That's why events are closed and places are canceled and all of that due to the virus. But I've also told her that, some people are really afraid and that's okay. And we're praying for those people who are really afraid. I've also told her that we're not personally afraid for our own lives and our own health because we're 4 healthy people, and that's such a blessing
Yes.
that we can thank God for that. And that, another reason we're not afraid is because we know God. And so, we know where we're going after we die, and that's an eternal hope. And that's why we pray for all of our friends who don't know Jesus and things like that. And then I've told her that we stay home to help keep other people healthy, to prevent
Yeah.
so we're healthy and that's great, but we want everyone to be healthy. And, some people have immune systems that don't work great, and we don't want to spread it to them. So that's why we're staying home and participating in this as well. Just because we're healthy doesn't mean we get to go out. And so just explaining that to her, and even though she's 5, but so I've explained, I feel like a lot to her,
Yeah.
especially for a 5-year-old, but she's not an anxious kid. And I've tried to keep it light to like, like, hey, this is just what we're doing, like very matter of fact. Like, hey, I know this is hard, but just kind of sharing more facts and some faith too.
Yeah, well, I love you took an opportunity to really involve God in it, and the other thing I really loved is that you gave her kind of a purpose in this. Okay, by you staying home and us staying home, we're helping not get other people sick. So it's kind of like, okay, that she's a part of this of helping, and so I think that's really good too. And then obviously you can include children in your prayers for people who are going through things, maybe whether you know them or not, or just in general, or you're I know a lot of families that have chosen to pray for healthcare workers, and
Mhm.
and I think so looking for those opportunities. Pray for the grocery clerks. I mean, we can see stats now how many grocery clerks have contracted it just because they're there trying to serve us, and so I think we can involve our kids in those things, praying for those people too, and so it really is an opportunity spiritually to grow your kids through this.
Yeah, definitely, and pray with them. I love that
Yeah.
idea of just, like, sitting down and praying for all the things with them. So, that's awesome. I'll plug our coronavirus house prayer cards again just because it's a great free resource, so we'll link that in
Yes.
the show notes, but that's something that you can say those guided prayers with your kids easily, about, and so but you might wanna skim through them because there are some that are praying for, like, harder things, and so if you do have a particularly anxious kid, maybe take a black marker and just cross some of those out if you're praying with them with the children.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives back, like you said, every child's different, and in their own family. I talked to a guy yesterday with 4 kids, and yeah, the way it was interesting how each one was dealing with it differently, and a couple of them are just real open and they talk about everything, not worried about that. The child that keeps things in more, a little more concerned about what is he or she really thinking, feeling, those kind of things, and so this. Like we talked, being a student of your spouse, you're a student of your kids too, and you know what's going to work with them better than anybody does.
Yeah, that's good. So, what are some of the issues and conflict areas that you're seeing parents get into during this time of social distancing and quarantining?
I think both parents being home all the time can be that. I mean, maybe both worked, and so that's not that unusual. Well, it is unusual because you're both home now instead of both being gone all day. And so, but then like maybe a mom that works from home or a stay-at-home mom, and now the husband's there, and she's used to a routine with the kids and disciplining the kids during the day, and that husband's there and can kind of get in the way. So you've got to be able to talk about those things. I think the fact that you might handle things differently, and you maybe didn't realize that as much as you did now, and so I think making sure that you're parenting as a team. I think not parenting as a team is going to be. I think we could be real vulnerable to that in this time, and I think it's real important that we do that. And again, it's an opportunity to begin to do those things. And so, having that conversation between the two of you, I think, is really, really important. How are we going to handle things? What are the issues that are coming up right now, and how are we going to handle those together? That's best for us and best for our kids.
Yeah, and coming up with plans together. Like,
Yeah.
if it is a discipline thing, well, like, what is going to be the plan instead of just, trying to react to it every single time, coming up with an actual plan and doing that together and recognizing that we're in this new weird place, and so how are you going to handle that, I think is really important. Some other issues that I have seen parents kinda get into is just screen time stuff, and so,
Mm.
how to navigate that when you can't go see your friends or you can't go to school. What are our screen time limitations gonna look like, and are they gonna be different than they were before, and that's gonna be different for every, parent to figure out in every household of maybe you do wanna be more slacks about it and let them have more screen time, or maybe you wanna keep the same regimen, but you've gotta figure out that for your family. A lot of other issues that I see, parents getting into is siblings fighting a lot because 'cause they're
Yeah.
together all the time, and maybe they went to school, and so they weren't used to doing that, and even if they are not school-age kids, like my kids aren't school age. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Well, they're used to playing with a lot of other children on a regular basis. They're
Yeah.
not used to only having each other to play with. That has never been the case. We've always been on the go and had play dates and stuff, and now we don't. And
Yeah.
so siblings fighting a lot can be a real big issue and how to navigate that. And then just cranky kids, and who can blame them? We're cranky too, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
Absolutely.
just such a challenging time to be a parent right now, I think.
I think it is too. I heard a guy say yesterday when all this is over and the kids hear the word play date, it's gonna be like Christmas to them because all of a
Seriously.
sudden, because they haven't seen their friends. And I know we thank goodness for technology. I've got, my grandkids are Zooming or FaceTiming with friends and staying connected that way, but it's not the same as playing with somebody. It's not the
Mhm.
same as just hanging out with your friends and whatever age you are. And so, yeah, that day when you can connect with your friends again, I mean, it's gonna be you can get a lot of kids happy about
Yeah,
that.
definitely. So, Dr. Kim, what advice do you have for us on how to deal with these conflicts as parents? How do we deal with siblings fighting a lot because they're stuck at home or cranky kids?
I think it's tough because I think we're kind of frustrated too, and so maybe we don't feel like we're on our game as much as we usually would be. So I think prayer, and then I think talking to the kids, and depending on the ages of your kids, and making sure what kids need their own space, and giving them that space so they can do that. Making sure, I think, uh, instituting a little structure with quiet time. Maybe have a couple times a day that are just quiet time. All the kids are apart. They can play, they can read, they do something, but they're not to interact with each other. And so maybe looking at things, being a little more intentional about some of those things to give them some space. And then I think you give them some grace, but I think you don't let it go too far. In other words, you still parent, and if one kid is really acting out a lot, then you focus on that kid and discipline whatever it needs to be. So you keep some order in it. But I think it's um, what does my kid need today in this? I think of my grandkids. I think of Tommy that's 13 and he is so active and he doesn't like to sit still at all. And so he has to be doing something all the time. And then like Gracie, who's 10 or 11 now, she would she's very good about just going to a room and being quiet and doing some things. And so again, okay, what does she need? Well, she's doing pretty good. If she's bigger, it's easy for her to go to a room. Sending Tommy to his room is like sending him to, prison or something. So how do you help him? And so with him, it's like let him go outside, shoot baskets for a while, let him do some things like that. That may be how he uses his quiet time differently. But giving the kids some space in there and helping them navigate that, and just you're the parent in this situation, and so they're not probably going to figure it out on their own. You got to figure it out, and then share that with them.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Some of the best parenting advice I ever got, I got from my mother-in-law, who's so kind and just is such a great mom,
Yeah,
and so I've learned a lot from her. But she explained it to me like dealing with it. Both my kids have like lots of feelings, and so she kind of helped me realize that like your kids are it's okay to have feelings, but like they don't need to like it's be angry and do not sin. And so let them know
right.
it's okay to feel things, but you don't get to make everybody else miserable just because you're miserable is the thing. Like you still have to be kind.
That's so
And so
good.
one of the things that I tell even my 5-year-old is just like, hey, it's okay to be sad. I would be sad too. Oh, it's okay to be mad. I would be mad too. But you don't get to yell at people because you're mad. That's not
Right,
kind. And
right.
if you feel like you really got to yell, you can go to your room and yell on the pillow. Or if you feel like you really want to like have a fit, that's okay too. But you need to go do it in your bedroom because you can't have a fit out here because it's not okay for you to make everybody else miserable just because you're miserable. That's not kind. It's okay to feel. It's not okay to sin. And so, I mean, it's okay to sin in the sense that there's grace, obviously, but
Right.
it's not okay to just, yeah, do whatever you want to do. I am still the parent. You don't get to scream and kick the floor. Like you've got to learn appropriate ways to deal with your feelings. And so we talk about them, we name them, we say they're okay, but then what are we going to do with them? And
Yeah.
having actions around that. And so and just being prayerful about it too, you trusting the Holy Spirit's guidance as you're figuring out what to do.
Yeah, and I think, and you're using that as a teaching opportunity. We've talked in another podcast about how couples grow their marriage through this. Well, you can grow your children and your parenting through this too, and I think that's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's good. That's good. And then some other things that I've been doing just because I've heard from older, wiser moms, not because it was my idea at all. I've been failing all along the way and learning as I go, trial and error for sure. But I have noticed that my kids need some time apart. And so
Yeah,
implementing our normal quiet time. So Roman takes a nap, Finley has quiet time. But even apart from that, like in the afternoons, even after that, they kind of get sick of each other. And so, I'll take Roman into a different room and get him occupied with something else playing with it. And then I'll tell Finley, like, hey, you can come do this craft over here with me and kind of like separating them for a little bit. And then I think attention is really big. I think a lot of kids are feeling a lot of things right now, and so giving them some mommy time and some daddy time,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking about, like, because we don't all have all the time in the world. Some of us are still very busy and have a lot of responsibilities, but I mean, like, 10 minutes a day of mommy time or daddy time where and what that looks like for us is I'll just tell my daughter, like, "Hey, it's mommy time, like, we're gonna play whatever you wanna play with mom for 10 minutes, and so if you wanna play Barbies, we'll play Barbies. If you wanna go jump on the trampoline, we'll go jump on the trampoline." But it's just, like, 10 minutes, and then the same for my son Roman, and I just feel like their behavior for whatever reason is so much better if you just, like, take the time. It's because it's relationship building, I think, and I think they just
Absolutely.
kinda need that, and especially for younger kids. I think they need that time, and so devote that time and then kinda, like, redirect them afterwards.
No, I think that's so good. Yeah, again, you're doing things that you know work and are good for your kids,
Mhm.
and if you are in a situation where you can let your kids have some outdoor time, uh, that's great. I think, depending on the ages, young kids, they need to run and jump and do some of that kind of stuff too, and so
Yeah,
giving opportunities to do that.
it's good. So what are some things that every parent needs to be doing for their family during this time of social distancing and quarantining, Dr. Kim?
I think you've got to take care of yourself. I think you've got to take for your marriage. I think you've got to resolve conflict quickly so you don't have things that hang over or build up. I think you want to be respectful for your kids and for each other. And I think you kind of said that too with the time being intentional and listening well to your kids and responding to what you're. Sometimes as parents, our kids are telling us things and we're thinking about something totally different. We're our body's there, but our mind didn't. I think our kids know that. And so just make sure when you're talking with your kids that you're listening, that you're giving them the same kind of feedback that you would you want your spouse to give to you. You want them to know that you heard what they said and respond to that. And as you do that, I think it's going to give them, it's going to make them want to talk to you more. And that's what you really want to know what's going on with them right now. I think if you're doing these healthy things, I heard a counselor on TV yesterday say something that how the kids are going to be damaged from this and everything. I don't believe that. I
Hmm.
think I think you can if you're intentional with your kids this and they see we're going through this together and certainly involving God in it and prayer, I think our kids can grow through this just like we want us to grow through this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I
Yeah,
think, we all grow through hard things if you're intentional, and so,
absolutely.
yeah, this can be really good for our kids in some sense, in the sense of, like, God can use trials for good things
Always
and
he
bring
always
glory from
does.
it. Mhm, he always does.
We're going to hear stories at the end of this where God was all over the place.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's gonna be exciting, and we're already hearing some of them for sure, but we're gonna hear more and more that God is at work right now. He is not sitting on some throne somewhere,
Yeah, it's not
doing nothing.
wasted. Mhm.
No,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
he's
certainly not.
very active.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think as a parent too, you've just gotta kinda decide what you're gonna do and not do, like, like, what you're gonna allow and not allow as far as, like, normal rules and stuff. I just think, we've got to give ourselves a little bit of a break with all of this pressure stuff. I mean, respect is still going to be important. Being
Yeah,
kind is still going to be important. But like, if they watch an extra show or two a day or a movie a day, I don't think that's going to be as important. And so, but also, your kids, and so you know what you need to implement and not
right.
implement. But I know for myself, like we've just been giving ourselves a lot of breaks when it comes to our normal rules with the kids because we recognize that they're losing other things, so it's okay for them to gain some other things. So they're losing an opportunity to play with their friends every day, and so if they gain an extra movie watching from Disney Plus every day, that's okay, because it's not forever. This is a short period of time where we're going to be doing
Right,
this,
right.
and so it's not like it's going to rot their brain in the couple months that we're doing this, and that they're
No,
going to be damaged forever from watching a
no.
little extra TV for a few months. But Dylan and I had to get on the same page about that and have conversations. I didn't just make these decisions on my own or without talking to him about it. We stayed in communication, and that's what's going to help the marriage piece of this and the parenting together as a team piece of
Yeah.
this work is like we've got to talk to each other about what's going to work for our kids and what we're going to change because the world has changed. So how are we going to change and adapt to this so that we can survive this well?
Yeah, that's good, and I think, find out what some of your, our friends are doing and with their kids. I talked to somebody and I think it's every Friday, they're doing, a pizza and movie party just like but they weren't doing that before. They'd always talked about doing it. "Hey, let's do Friday night family night." Well, now they're doing that. So, give the kids some things to look forward to. You can do, crazy dress up day. and so everybody dresses themselves crazy, and so put some fun things in it. Just be a little bit creative with it. Uh, you can create some really good memories through this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And not that it's not still hard, but
No,
yeah, what would it look like to do something like crazy silly stuff with our kids so that when they look back on this, they don't just think of hard things, but they
right?
also think of some good things. Like I
Yeah,
love that idea of just getting creative with that.
yeah,
And it's the small things, especially with young kids, but with older kids too. Like it's the small things. You don't need to go out and spend a ton of money. You don't need to
absolutely.
like, the other day, we just, like I bought balloons when I was grocery shopping, and so I just, like, blew up 15 balloons, and the kids played with balloons all day long, like, it cost 99 cents, and they had a blast, and it was different. You don't normally have balloons just laying around the house.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I don't anyways, maybe someone else does. Maybe if you're, like, work for a circus or something you do, but
Yeah.
we don't normally just have them laying around. And so, yeah, so it's just, like, fun and different, and it was so small, so small.
Yeah. No, I love that, and share those things with us. Put them on the Awesome Marriage Facebook or Instagram. Share some of those things with us so we can share with others. And I think it's again of all of us sharing things with you. There's a lot of great creative ideas out there, and so if you come up with something that works for your family, share it with other people.
Yeah, of how we're keeping them entertained. Yeah, definitely. We
Yep.
have, at church, we have a Facebook page for the New City Kids Ministry, and so all the parents are on there and stuff like that, and so that's what we've been doing on our New City Kids Facebook page is just sharing, like, what we're doing as parents to keep our kids entertained. It's been so great because 'cause I've been stealing all their ideas. Everything that works
Right.
for their kids, we're trying at home too, and so if your local church is doing anything for kids, I really encourage you to engage with that and
That's so good.
to
Yeah.
get on the bandwagon there and to use those resources that your church is sending out.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. You don't have to invent everything. Look for the resources and then pick things that are going to work for your family.
Definitely. Well, do you have any tips or tricks when it comes to the schooling piece of parenting for a lot of these parents that now find themselves as remote learner educators?
Oh my gosh. I've heard I've talked to
So
so
many
many.
stories.
Oh my gosh, yes. Uh, and some people feel so unequipped to teach their kids, and they thought maybe they couldn't teach their kids, and now they know they can't teach their kids. So here's some things that I've seen that I think work. I think you on your school days, I think you put some structure in it. I've talked to one guy, and his kids do uniforms at school. They do. They get up, they regular time. They get the regular routine. They do morning announcements. Okay, this is what our day is going to look like, kids. They do the Pledge of Allegiance as a family. They have their uniforms on. They know we're going to do the homework that the school sent during this time, and some you have to structure that around if teachers are doing Zoom calls or whatever with your kids. They're doing recess. They're kind of keeping the school days some structure like that. Now, that depends. That works for some people. Some people may not be that structured, but your kids are pretty used to that. And so I think they fall into that pretty easily. And then they're doing fun things like they're doing Fridays, they're doing dress up days, or maybe they'll have superhero day, or they'll throw some other days in there so they can dress different ways. So they're not wearing their uniforms all the time, but 2 or 3 times a week, wearing the uniforms, a couple times a week, doing some dress up days. And I think just for the school part of it, teachers probably get mad at me, but do what you can. Don't worry about what you can't do.
Yeah,
You
I agree.
you are not an educator. That's not what you love your kids more than anybody does, but that's why you had them in school because you
Mhm.
decide I'm not good at homeschool. I don't want to do those things, and so I think do what you can. And I had a mom, and her kid, both of her kids are in the school. It's pretty demanding, and they're sending, in my opinion, way too much homework. And she just called the school and said, you know what, you just need to know I'm going to do what I can. I'm not going to do all this. There's other things that I want to accomplish during this time. It's a time for them to really bond with their dad because he's home. It's a time that we can do some things that I want to do. Plus, I don't feel equipped to do some of this stuff. And so you just need to know. And the school said, okay. I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And so I think don't get so caught up on that. And if you're fighting with your kids over the work, uh, man, just reevaluate it. Don't get so anal about it. You think we've got to do everything to the T because this is a different time, a different situation, and 99% of the kids are going to catch up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is
They're
most
going to
kids,
catch up.
a couple months is not gonna it's not gonna hurt these kids' education.
No,
They'll catch up, and for the ones that won't too, like their mental health and their emotional health matters too,
absolutely.
and so
Y-
this is just a different time, and we have to have the grace to say this is a different time. We're gonna do this schooling differently if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and I would say, and if you're, I would focus. To me, if it was my kids at home, I would try to do the stuff the skills at home, but then I would encourage them in reading. I would encourage them. I would look for other things that they can do to educate that maybe aren't in the regular school structure. Maybe they're creative, so they make things. Maybe they are into science, and so you let them do a science project during this time. Do some things like that are kind of education related, but that they really might have fun with. And so and that's it's a lot better than fighting with them over something.
Yeah, that's good. And then I think too, if you have any homeschool friends, like call those homeschool parents.
Yes,
Like
use your
I'm sure
resources.
they would love to help you. And also, all the homeschool moms I know and homeschool dads I know, they already do these other creative
Yep,
things. They're not sitting at the table with their kids from 9 till 2 doing schoolwork. That's not what they're doing at all. They're doing creative things. They're doing projects. They're reading a lot. And so ask them what they're doing, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of tips and tricks for you.
absolutely. There's your expert right now.
Seriously.
I mean, the
Yeah.
people from your school are really not the experts, and they know how to educate in a school setting, but your experts are really the ones who've really been doing homeschooling and love doing it and are doing it well. Absolutely. That's your
Yeah,
resource.
that's
Go to
good.
them.
That's good. So what advice do you have for us when our kids are kinda driving us crazy and we need space from them, but we can't really get it?
Uh, I think you've gotta have those breaks. I think you've gotta have those times a couple times a day. And I think too, maybe the things that you're trying to get the kids to do, maybe have some rewards for them to do. Maybe it's like, okay, and everybody's gonna be quiet time. Well, maybe you've got one kid that just can't. And so they're coming out all the time. So maybe put a reward. If everybody will do this for an hour, this is what we get to do afterwards, or some things like that. And so I think building those times into the day are really important. I think you just can't all of you stay in the same room 24/7, however this thing lasts. Well, and so you've got to be creative. If you're in a small place, you got to be creative. So maybe somebody their place is the bathroom. It's fine with me. I'll go to the bathroom. Whatever it is, if let them have the bedrooms or what. But I think really giving some space and time, and being creative in that, because I think we can get it. You may not feel like you can, but and it may take your husband, the two of you together, or if you're a single parent doing that. But create that space, create that time. Gracie, like now she isn't anymore because she's older, but she loved this closet that's behind me where some books and stuff are, and it has a sliding door on it. She loved to get in there and read. And so, be creative that you've got somewhere that maybe a kid thinks, well, this is your private little place. This is your little own little house. And so it's okay to put them in a closet, a big closet. Don't get
Yeah,
and not the claustrophobic about, but be creative about that. Some
yeah,
things where they can get some space. Because if you find yourself yelling at them all the time, that's not good for any of you.
yeah, definitely. That's good. Yeah, and I love that idea because you could even get creative with, like, doing a makeshift little tent with a bed sheet, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And I feel like environment really makes a big difference for kids too, and, like, just, like, the ambiance of things, and so if they are having big feelings or if things just feel stressful, maybe, like, unstress the environment, light a candle, dim the lights, unclutter an area, a corner of the room where they can set up something cool, like, even if it's just, like, yeah, pillows and a bed sheet that makes a tent,
Yep.
kinda
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah, I
No,
love that idea.
absolutely. No, I think that those are great ideas. There's a deal that we used to do with kids that needed space, and we would give them umbrellas.
Yep.
And so they would open the umbrella, and that was would go over them, and they'd kind of have their little space with the umbrella over them. And I love the deal with a card table or dining room table with a sheet over it. I mean,
Yeah.
when I
Works
was a
great.
kid, I loved those kind of things. I
Yeah.
loved because you felt like this is my own little world. And so
Mhm.
even if you're in a one bedroom apartment, be creative with it.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Yeah, and I think for me, what I've learned with like younger kids, I would definitely recommend if you're on Instagram, go ahead and follow the Busy Toddler account. It is the best account if you have young little ones at home. And for me, I have found I have to entertain the kids and then not in order to get my space. So like I'll get them occupied. I'll do something fun or creative with them. And then also for this Busy Toddler account, she just has tons of great ideas that will actually entertain toddlers. And so they're usually like cheap little hacks. And so she just has like a ton of like really, she's just like so creative and she comes up
That's
with these
cool.
really creative ideas. And so I'll get together and it's usually like stuff you have around the house. And so I'll get together something and I'll show the kids how to do the activity. And then they'll continue to do the activity for another 30 or 45 minutes without me. And I can like breathe for a second, which is so nice. And so yeah,
Absolutely. That's
toddlers follow
so
that account. Toddler moms.
Yeah, and I would think, toddlers are gonna be one of the hardest because they wanna be where you are and they wanna be around you.
Yeah, it's interesting,
Yep.
So what
Yeah.
advice do you have for us to help our anxious kids, for those of us who are struggling with anxious kids?
I think they're gonna play off of you. I
Mhm,
think even though you may be anxious to try to be as calm as you can around them. You can tell them that mom's anxious too, but, tell them how you handle it, or that everything's gonna be okay or whatever. To reassure them, again, like we said, teaching them about God, praying with them, praying for them. But I think they can key off of you. And I think kids that are anxious, if they see their parents anxious, makes it more difficult for those children. And so I'm not saying fake it. I'm just saying handle that in a way that doesn't affect your kids in a negative way.
yeah,
Handle your anxiety in a different way. And I think too, kids that I've worked with that are anxious. Um, I had a little girl that I was working with last year, this past year, and she a lot of anxiety. And the way she grew in a relationship with God and what God did in that when she turned to Him and prayed for some peace and things like that, how He showed up was I don't know why I don't know why that always amazes me. It's like, okay, I tell them this is what I believe God will do. They do it, and God does it, and I think, wow, that's cool. I didn't know He did it. It's like, yes, He does. And so, uh, do some of those things. I think you have it. Again, it's a teaching, growing opportunity you've got for them. Don't miss that opportunity.
yeah, that's good, yeah, and I think praying for them and just talking to them, hearing out their
Yep,
fears, it's all good stuff.
it
Uh,
is.
yeah. What should we do if, we don't like how our spouse is handling parenting during this time? What if we're not on the same page? What can we do to make sure we're parenting on the same team?
Put him in timeout.
Stop. You can't do that.
No, you can't. I can't see Dylan in timeout.
No.
No, I could see Nancy putting me in timeout back then, but I
Yeah.
don't think I could have put her. I think you have to. Your parents, you've got to set aside time to talk about this. You have a responsibility to your kids to parent well together during this, and they need to see you do that. You have such an opportunity to model good things for them right now, parenting as a husband and wife, all those things. You've got so many good opportunities to do that. And so I think talk about it, being willing to compromise, just like you were talking with Dylan about the snacks at 6 a.m. You thought it was a good idea. Maybe he didn't think it was a great idea, but he went along with it. I mean,
Mhm.
and so being willing to compromise, to be on the same page with things. And that doesn't mean you have to be 100%, but kind of give and take with that. So then maybe Dylan says, well, I think they should have ice cream every afternoon at 1. Okay, I'm giving the snacks. We'll give them ice cream. And, whatever. I'm not telling, of course, if your kids
Sounds
hear
great,
that,
as
they're
long as
going,
I can
yeah,
eat it
yeah.
too. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
And so I think, but I think it's really taking that responsibility. God tells us we've got to train them. You're their model of a man, a woman, a husband, a wife, a mother, father. You can do that really well during this time. And so I think take that job, take that role very, very seriously. Pray, be willing to compromise, talk about it. Don't let things build up. If it's something that's not working in parenting together, say, okay, we need a timeout. Go talk about this and do that and grow your parenting during this time.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good advice. Yeah, I think we've just gotta be willing to hear each other out. Remember that you're on the same team. You both love your kids. You both want what's best for your
Yes.
kids. And so remember that when you're talking to your spouse and really hear them out. Why do you
Yep.
wanna do it that way? Help me understand. Why do you think that's a good idea? What's the result of that? Because what I think so many of us get wrong in marriage when we're struggling to parent our kids is we're assuming we want different end goals. We want the same end goal. Like we want our
Absolutely.
kids to be great. We want our kids to love God and to make wise choices and be good human beings. Like both of you want that. You're just disagreeing on how to get there. And so
Yep.
talk about that, hear each other out. Your spouse is smart. They're loving, they love your kids, hear them out and hear them all the way. And then use the rating system. Say, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 9 of importance to me of why I think this is gonna work. I have a 9's number confidence in this, and hear your spouse out too, and I just find that the rating tool really helps you to see when to make those concessions and when to kind of, like, hold your ground and as you're trying to compromise and make decisions together.
Absolutely. And I think it helps you think through it too. Okay, you may think, well, this is important, but is it that important to me?
Mhm.
No, it really is just a 1 or 2. Okay, this is a 9 to you. Let's do the 9. Yeah,
Yeah,
and be willing to compromise and work together at that, because I think that's something you both of you want your kids to grow up and be healthy, responsible adults. It's not like you want different things for them. It's just funny how the past can be so different.
it is.
It's
Yeah.
so different, and so but there's a value in that. Both of you bring things that are going to be good for your kids, and so it's okay. Let's do this. Let's do that, and working together on it. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too in that we forget that God has the grace to work in all of it. So I think we have this illusion where we have so much control in how our kids are going to turn out, and that's all it is an illusion. And so can you trust God that even if you go your spouse's way, even if you don't think it's the most effective parenting model or the most effective way, can you trust that God is going to honor the fact that you're trying to love and honor and cherish your spouse and go your spouse's way on this? Can you trust God to work in that? I think we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's such a good way to put that, and know that you're not gonna when you're talking about this and you're both wanting what's best for your kids, you're not gonna screw them up doing that. You're working for what's good for your kids, and so yeah, and God's gonna work within whatever decision you make.
Yeah, and love covers a multitude of sins. So
Sure
you're gonna
does.
fail along the way, I fail every day,
Yep,
but the most important thing is to love God and to love your kids, and love covers a multitude of sins. So cling to love when you don't know what else to do.
absolutely. That's what they're gonna remember.
Yeah, it's the best thing to do.
Yep.
So, Dr. Kim, what do we do if we don't feel like our spouse is taking up their fair share of the load of this parenting responsibility during this time?
Well, you don't want to let that build up resentment or anger or any kind of stuff. So you again, you got to talk about it. You got to say, "Hey, I know you're not used to being home all the time, blah blah blah, but we need to talk about this together." And so maybe you get together and you talk about, okay, what are the things that we need to be doing right now as parents, and who's going to do what, and kind of make organized. Maybe your spouse didn't do anything because they don't know what to do. I mean, that is a possibility because things like for most moms, parenting, they'll say a lot of those things that the kids need at certain ages, that comes real natural for them. And for the dad, it may not. I mean, he may be the one who you're trying to do stuff that you know is good, and he's the one who's disrupting him because he's acting like a child and playing playing too, or whatever it is. So sit down. Okay, this is what I think that would be, and both of you put input, but that we need to be doing for our kids each day during this time. Then maybe you rank them. Okay, these are the most important. Okay, who wants what would you like to do of those? And what am I gonna do? Just so we make sure we get all those covered every day. And how are we gonna do discipline? Do we both do discipline? Do we let just one do discipline now? What do we talk about those things? And so you get kind of organized with it. Uh, but I think then you need a starting point. You need to sit down and say, okay, we need to parent better through this. Let's talk this through.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love the idea of just getting organized together. And I'll speak to the wives a little bit in this, to the ladies in this. I think it's really important not to discount your husband, right? Your husband is a smart man and
Yes,
dads do it different. They just do. Your way as a mom, I think so many of us as moms, we just think, and I'm guilty of this too, that our way has to be better because we have this mother instinct and we're
right.
nurturing and, maybe we're with the kids more. And so we should just go mom's way because mom is right. And I would just encourage you to not fall victim to that. You're missing out on your husband if you're going to discount everything he says. Dads do it different. That's okay.
Right.
Lean into his leading with this sometimes. Your man is smart. Trust him. He's a good dad. Trust him and lean into that sometimes too.
I love that you said that because you're a woman and you said it. I think that's a pretty normal thing for most women, and I get it because in a lot of ways, I mean, you are the nurturer. You do think of things that we don't think of, but guys have a lot of cool ideas, and
Yeah.
I've had moms that have released and said, I was scared to let go of this with him, but my gosh, he did really good, and he did something I wouldn't do, and the kids loved it, and so give him a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, this has been a cool conversation. I hope this helps all the parents out there parent together as a team during this weird time that we're in and just share some
Yeah.
practical advice. And what final piece of advice do you have for our listeners today, Dr. Kim?
Yeah, it would be get on the same team, communicate, things we talk about a lot, but God, what a great opportunity to do that. And to think if you go through this and on the other side of it, you think, man, we are so much better parents because we worked on this together. That would be something to really celebrate once we're through with all this. I'd pray that for every couple.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, hey, as always, if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can email us at info@awesomemarriage.com, or you can direct message us over on Instagram. We love praying for you and we love hearing from you. We're praying for you specifically during this time that your marriage would thrive and grow during this, and that you would turn towards each other and walk alongside each other through this journey instead of turning against each other. Have a great day and do something awesome for your marriage today.